What is up, guys? Londrick here, and now I'm back with another edition of Lundrick's Fave Five. But before I do, because Lundrick is an idiot sometimes, when I did the Q&A, I missed some questions off. So before I start the Fave Fives, I'm going to type the loose ends from last week and finish the Q&A because I got one guy's questions that I forgot to put on the video. So here we are. So we've got 5 questions from Owen Peterson, and they are the following. Thoughts on Ric Flair's throughout Ric Flair's career, which of his feuds do you think got him the most heel heat? Gotta be the Dusty 85-86 feud for me. I mean, you even look at the Steamboat feud back in '89. I mean, Flair did get a decent amount of cheers from the crowd, and I think after a certain point of his career, he was never truly hated as a heel. I mean, I guess like the late '80s, early '90s, when he was seen as maybe the greatest of all time at that point. He'd gotten the respect from the fans now, so it was really hard to get him heel heat. But I think the one that stands out to me as him being the most hated heel was that 85-86 feud Dusty Rhodes. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but the angle a few months before Starrcade 85, it was Ric Flair was wrestling one of the Russians in a cage match. Might have been Ivan or Nikita, I can't remember which ones. Then the Russians were beating up on Flair, and then Dusty Rhodes makes a save, and then Arn and Ole Anderson come into the ring, and then Arn, Ole and Ric Flair all lay a massive beating on Dusty Rhodes, and they do a thing where Arn and Ole hold the ankle, and Ric Flair comes off the top rope, stamps on Dusty Rhodes' ankle, and supposedly breaks the ankle. Oh, the heat they had that night. I mean, fans were trying to get in the cage, fans weren't letting them get out of the arena, and they had to take the security guards had to really take control and get an opening for the Andersons and Flair to get out of there. And I think throughout the feud, it was just the ultimate. Ric Flair represented corporate greed, the arrogant bastard, and Dusty Rhodes is the everyday common man. I mean, he even had a theme song calling himself the Common Man at one time. But yeah, it was just a classic feud. Obviously, some of the promos were amazing. Yeah, and I think like someone as loved as Dusty got Ric Flair the ultimate heel heat. So I would say that one. And thoughts on the Cam Cornette faction. Well, the first thing that comes to mind, so obviously thinking about this, so when Vader died, I was thinking about it. Then I was like, oh shit, yeah, they're all dead now apart from Cornette, which, that's just horrible. A faction was only 22 years ago, and every single member, apart from the manager, is dead. Because obviously I'm counting the brief time that Yokozuna was in there as well. I thought it was an alright faction for the time. I don't think it was a blow-away faction or anything. But obviously, I assume when you mean Cam Cornette, I'm assuming you mean when after Yokozuna turned face, and it was just Vader, Owen Hart, and the British Bulldog. But yeah, I thought they were alright heels at the time. Obviously, WWF wasn't doing the best business in 1996. Obviously they were struggling against WCW and things like that. It didn't really start becoming an exciting product again until 1997. But I thought they did okay. I mean, obviously out the workers there, you got Vader as a great big man. British Bulldog is he could kind of do it all, really, couldn't he? He was a power guy, but he could also wrestle, and he was also quite fast when he wanted to be. Owen Hart was just a great worker. I mean, obviously the high point of this faction has to be that International Incident pay-per-view, where they main event that show against Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson, and Psycho Sid. So it's not one of those ones where you think, oh, wasn't Cam Cornette awesome? But I think they did a sort of little job at the time. And I don't think Cornette, obviously it wasn't Jim Cornette managing the Midnight Express great, but I thought he did it alright. I thought he was an alright fit to do it at the time. Because obviously at the time, 1996, was obviously for years, WWF was very manager heavy, going back to the senior days. Obviously in the 80s you had a ton of managers, but by 1996 you only really had, as far as male managers go, you only really had Jim Cornette and Paul Bearer left. And even though sometimes some of Corny's style was like Southern wrestling, I thought he did a decent enough job. And then next question, what we got? Which cities would you like to see WrestleMania in the future? So, I could say London, England, but that's just probably not going to happen. So I'll say mostly North American based cities that either haven't had a WrestleMania or haven't had one for a long time. Because that's one of the things I see now. They just keep going back to the same places. So look at last year, going back to Orlando. This year, back to New Orleans. Next year, they're going back to New York, New Jersey, the MetLife Center Arena, whatever the hell you call it. Yeah, so it just seems like it's been a while since a brand new city's had a WrestleMania. And also, I will state that obviously I'm from England, so my knowledge on American sports stadiums is, well, I don't really have any knowledge of it. So if some of these cities don't have big sports stadiums, and I apologise, because let's be honest, WrestleMania is going to be for stadium from now on. So I think Minneapolis, Minnesota would be a great one, and I have heard that rumour for WrestleMania 36, because honestly Minneapolis has never had a WrestleMania before, which is kind of weird, because obviously Minneapolis was such a hotbed for wrestling back in the day with the AWA and all that. So I thought that's also been kind of disappointing that they've never had a WrestleMania there. I suppose Philadelphia's another one, but they might want to wait a couple of years for that, because obviously they're in the Northeast this year. And obviously the WrestleMania 15 was in Philadelphia, but that was that'll be 20 years ago, so that'd be awesome. Obviously Philadelphia is such a notoriously rowdy crowd and all that, and so if anything, it would be an amazing crowd. And of course, you've got all the history of ECW and all that there. I mean, obviously back in the day, both WWF and WCW ran Philadelphia quite often, so I think that would be a great one. I mean, I'd love to see a WrestleMania in Canada again, because you only had two, 6 and 18. So obviously you could go back to Toronto, yeah. And I believe the Skydome's now called the Rogers Centre, I believe. So you could always go back to there, but there's not like Toronto's the only place in Canada you could go. You could go to Montreal, you could go to Alberta, so I don't know if Calgary has a big sports stadium or not. I mean, that'd be cool if it did, kind of. I mean, if they went back to Calgary or something like that for WrestleMania, that'd be pretty sweet. Yeah. So let's have the Carolinas. I mean, I can't believe the Carolinas have never had a WrestleMania before either. So even something like Charlotte or Greensboro, I mean, surely that's ridiculous, as they've never had a WrestleMania before, because obviously Carolina, again, back in the day, such a hotbed for wrestling with Jim Crockett Promotions and all that shit, and they have had plenty of like regular WWE pay-per-views there. They had a SummerSlam there in 2000, I believe it was. I think that was in Raleigh though, wasn't it, if I'm not mistaken. But you think definitely either Greensboro or Charlotte would definitely be an ideal place for WrestleMania. Definitely think Chicago deserves another one in the future, because they haven't had one since 22. And there's no need for really to explain that one. I mean, obviously, Chicago, one of the best wrestling cities in the world, if not the best for that matter. Just saying. Tennessee. So Memphis or Nashville or wherever, they've never had a WrestleMania before. And obviously, again, a hot territory back in the day. So I always thought that was strange how they've never had a WrestleMania. So I think those are pretty much qualify for me. Those are the main ones I can think of right now. I mean, I'm sure there's more. I mean, because obviously there's a lot of cities in America. There's 50 states. And obviously, I'm being from England. I don't have the greatest knowledge of all of them. But those are the ones that really come to mind right now. And then we've got top 10 or in bracket 5 fantasy tag team matches featuring two wrestlers of any era. So I've drawn up a list, and I've come up with 10. They're not in order, but I've come up with a list. So I've got so the first team were Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley. Whoa! Can you imagine the badassness of this? Is badassness even a word? Well, if it's not, I've just made it up. But just imagine the badassness of this team. Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley. I mean, holy crap. On paper, who could be more dominant than these two guys? I mean, these are two of the baddest motherfuckers on the planet. And you just think they'd make an awesome tag team. Now, number 9 is probably going to happen occasionally, but they're obviously not going to be a regular tag team. But I think they are probably going to team up on occasion in the future. And that's Okada and Tanahashi. Obviously, probably the two greatest New Japan stars of the modern era. Obviously now they called a truce because of their mutual dislike for Jay White and all that. So, and I'm not sure if they are going to wrestle. I heard they might be teaming up in the World Tag League final this year, but I'm not 100% certain. But you're thinking throughout 2019, they'll probably team up on a semi-regular basis. Now, oh God, I just had a wet dream thought there. Imagine Okada and Tanahashi versus the Golden Lovers. Wow. Yeah, I'll probably just say, calm down, Craig, calm down. But yeah, that would be a great team. And now I've gone for a super technical team next, and that's Kurt Angle and Bob Backlund. Now, they kind of did do something like this in the year 2000, with Bob Backlund briefly being Kurt Angle's mentor. But if I'm not mistaken, it never ever led to a match. I mean, I don't think in that run Bob Backlund ever got in the ring. But first I'm talking about Kurt Angle in his prime and Bob Backlund in his prime. I mean, as far as technical wrestling, can you think of a better tag team than that? Of course, two American heroes, like obviously both very patriotic guys, both amateur wrestling, awesome amateur wrestlers. So yeah, I think that'd be pretty sweet. Then number 7, I've gone for badassness next. Is Stan Hansen and Bradshaw. Well, that'd be a classic student versus mentor team. But obviously you look at JBL Bradshaw. It's not obviously patting himself a lot after Stan Hansen in his career. And yeah, I just think that'd be awesome. Because obviously, so some of my favourite teams are like veterans teaming up with young guys. So for example, Doom, Ron Simmons being paired up with Butch Reed. Because honestly, it's just a great way to help get a young guy over, teaming with a veteran every night. And obviously, so say Bradshaw, like fairly young in his career, getting mentored by Stan Hansen, and obviously they could be like, I don't know, they could be the Cowboys or something like that, something along those lines. I think that'd be pretty damn sweet, to be fair. And what have we got next? Then we got I've gone for craziness next. Dean Ambrose and Brian Pillman. Now that would be a team. I mean, imagine the promos these guys could cut. Some of the tremendous feuds he could have. Obviously, you've got the smaller Pillman, you've got Ambrose, the more of the brawler. I think they complement each other quite well. Then I've got, obviously this is a dream one, because obviously the person doing this dreamed this up when he was a kid. Owen Hart and Chris Jericho. So I think we talked about this in the last Q&A, how when Chris Jericho was in school, he used to draw pictures of classes, him and Owen Hart being the Stampede Tag Team Champions. And it would have been cool as fuck if this was a reality. Even if Owen had lived and they did it in the WWE, that'd just be so nice, wouldn't it? To be honest. And we got this is one dream one for me. So, what if everything had worked out differently, and Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness came at the WWE together like they were supposed to, and be a tag team on either Raw or SmackDown back in 2010? I think that'd be awesome. I think that'd be an absolutely awesome way to bring both guys in. I just think that'd be fantastic. Obviously, because I was watching Ring of Honor in the mid to late 2000s, and it was really all about Danielson and McGuinness, obviously, the epic rivalry. And those were the two guys that really carried Ring of Honor from like 2007, 2008. And yeah, I think that would have been sweet. Now, I know before I said Lesnar and Lashley were the most badass team, but I could find a combination that could match them. And that's the Ultimate Giant team of Andre the Giant and the Big Show. I mean, obviously on paper it'd be hard to book these guys because nobody could really beat them. But I think just for the novelty factor of two 7-foot, 500-pound monsters, that'd be the ultimate like gigantic tag team. That'd be amazing. Then for me, this one would be a lot of fun for me. I've gone for Hulk Hogan and Dusty Rhodes. I mean, I've always thought, like, back when Dusty's Common Man were in the WWF, he could have had an alliance with Hulk Hogan, obviously the real American Hulk Hogan, and the American Dream. It just kind of makes sense, you know. Obviously, and Dusty obviously kind of different from Hogan, but obviously the charisma would be off the charts, and I think they complement each other quite well. And then the last one I've gone with, they have teamed at least once or twice, but never on television as far as I know, and that is obviously Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. I mean, can you think of a better working tag team than those guys? I mean, they did wrestle a couple of times in 1995 together as a team, and a couple of house shows during that year. And I believe one of them, if I'm not mistaken, one of them's on that unreleased DVD we put out last year. But yeah, I think that'd be pretty awesome. And then last question from you, and then we'll get to the actual video. How ironic do you find that Hogan's WCW run began at the first Bash at the Beach in 1984 and ended at the last Bash at the Beach in 2000? Yeah, I never really thought of that until you mentioned it, but you're absolutely right. Hogan's run, obviously, yeah, it's just quite an ironic stat, isn't it, really, that Hogan started in WCW at the first Bash at the Beach and then ended his career at the last Bash at the Beach. I mean, yeah, it's just quite an ironic stat, isn't it, really? And you think about how much Hulk Hogan's WCW run revolved around Bash at the Beach. Obviously, debuted there, had the match with Vader on the beach, turned heel and joined the NWO in 1996, had the two Rodman matches in 1997 and 1998. Don't think it was on 1999 if I'm right. And yeah, obviously the controversy surrounding Great American Bash 2. Try again. Bash at the Beach 2000. Fucking hell, I fucked that one up, didn't I? So yeah, I just think it's a nice ironic stat. And so that's halfway through last week being tied up, and now we're at the main event. So this week's Fave Five is WWF/WWE title changes. I actually put it to the public this time because I didn't have a topic. Got a few suggestions, and this was the one I liked best. I think this one came from Jareth Dorcas, I think your name is. I definitely recognise, no, Jarek Dorcas, I think. I remember, I've seen your comment before. So basically, yeah, that's it. WWF/WWE title changes. Now, obviously, I'm only talking about the big belt, the WWE title. So stuff like Intercontinental, World Heavyweight, Tag Team, not on this list. Maybe down the line I'll do that, I don't know. And obviously, just to make it a little bit simpler for the purposes of this, no vacant titles, so someone has to win the title from somebody else. So stuff like The Rock winning the vacant title of Survivor Series 1998, Macho Man winning the WrestleMania 4 tournament for the vacant title, and not on this list. Now, before I start, just rattle off a couple of honourable mentions. So obviously, honourable mention going to be Eddie Guerrero at No Way Out 2004, beating Brock Lesnar. Bret Hart becoming the 5-time World Wrestling Federation champion at SummerSlam 1997. Edge cashing the Money in the Bank at New Year's Revolution 2006. The Undertaker finally getting a proper world title run at WrestleMania 13. But enough about that, let's get onto the actual list. Now, coming at number 5, Daniel Bryan, WrestleMania 30. Now, this one could easily be a lot higher in a lot of people's lists. And I imagine if you're a certain age, it could even be number 1. But for me, it's only number 5, and probably because this isn't really my era growing up watching wrestling. I was already 27 when this match happened, so obviously the ones I've got on this list are really on this list because of I was a younger fan watching at the time. But obviously, as far as modern times in WWE, this has got to be the one. And I forgot to put down CM Punk and Money in the Bank 2011. There's another honourable mention. But for me, Daniel Bryan winning the world title at WrestleMania 30 was just great. I mean, obviously I don't want to get in a big argument about vanilla midgets and all that crap with people. So any comments like that, I'll just ignore it. So obviously, yeah, this was a culmination of a long, frustrating period. So I'll briefly. So obviously Daniel Bryan got so over in 2013, but he wasn't WWE's guy, was he? Let's be honest. I mean, anyone who sits there and says, "Oh, this was always a plan for Bryan to win the title of WrestleMania 30," you're wrong. That's just plain wrong. So Bryan got really, really over, and they did the whole thing where the Authority screwed him at SummerSlam. And obviously it was assumed back then they were building to something better. And also Daniel Bryan went through his feud with Randy Orton, then after Hell in a Cell. Then he got phased out, and obviously Bryan got replaced with the Big Show, if you remember that. Remember the Big Show stealing all the yes chants and all that. And it was going to be the Big Show and Randy Orton for Survivor Series in one of the worst received main events of all time. I don't think the match is actually that terrible. I mean, I've seen a lot worse matches than that, but just the people just did not want to see that at all. I mean, really didn't. And obviously, Bryan and Punk ended up in a feud with the Wyatt family. And obviously, at that point, WrestleMania was coming around. It looked like the WWE was not going to push Daniel Bryan that main event spot at WrestleMania, because their grand plan was to bring Batista back as this huge babyface and have Batista versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania. And what was Daniel Bryan's plan for WrestleMania, you ask? It was going to be Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus. I mean, true story. Vince brought Bryan into his office one day to discuss WrestleMania plans. So Bryan's thinking, this could be interesting. What's it going to be? And he goes, pal, I want you to wrestle Sheamus. So Bryan's like, shit. Because Bryan's thinking, I like wrestling Sheamus and all that. That's pretty cool. But this WrestleMania crowd's not really going to want to see me wrestle Sheamus. So obviously the Batista thing happened. Yeah, that just couldn't have gone any worse, really, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't think it was all Batista's fault. I think it was more creator's fault than it was Batista's fault. I mean, the only thing Batista really did was not being Daniel Bryan. Because the fans at that point, the fans weren't willing to accept anyone other than Daniel Bryan in that spot. He was their guy. That was the guy they wanted in that spot. So the perception was, here comes Batista waltzing after 4 years. And now this old timer is going to get this WrestleMania spot over the guy we love. Then obviously Rumble 2014 happened. Most people expected Bryan to enter that Royal Rumble, win the Royal Rumble. Looking back now, I have no idea why. We should have really seen this coming. But of course, Bryan loses in the opening match to Bray Wyatt. Awesome match, by the way, but, you know. So you think, hey, Bryan's going to come out the Royal Rumble. So obviously, we're getting down. No, Daniel Bryan. 28, Batista comes out. 29, not Bryan. Oh, number 30. Right, this is surely Daniel Bryan, right? Rey Mysterio, number 30. And for the first time in his career, really, Rey Mysterio completely built out the building. And you've got to feel awful for Rey. And that's another thing. If WWE are going to do this, they should have put a major heel in that spot. Instead of hanging Rey Mysterio out there to dry. So obviously, at this point, the fans completely turn the match. Then it gets down to Batista and Roman Reigns. So I think at this point, fans would have accepted Roman Reigns. But of course, Batista wins the Royal Rumble, and fans were all up in arms about this. I mean, obviously, I was as well, not going to lie. I mean, I was pretty pissed off at the time. But so was pretty much everyone. So it's not just me. And obviously, that was just a dark time in WWE. That was just a dark time in WWE with the struggle with the fans and all that. And then something weird happened. The next day, CM Punk ups and quits at WWE, which fucks up a major WrestleMania match because it was supposed to be CM Punk taking on Triple H. So Triple H now needed an opponent for WrestleMania, and obviously Daniel Bryan fit that spot. But then at this point, the crowd reactions to Batista were getting worse and worse and worse. I think it was at a certain point where it was like, they cannot possibly go through this Batista Orton match. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen, was it? I mean, and I've always wondered, what if they actually went through with this? I've just always wondered, like, that's just a major funny what if moment for me. Like, what if they actually didn't listen to the fans and actually went through Batista versus Orton at WrestleMania? Just how much the fans would have shit all over that match. God, that could have been a fucking train wreck, couldn't it? I mean, no matter how good the match might have been, I think the fans would have just absolutely destroyed it as well. And especially after ending the streak a couple of matches earlier as well. So obviously then, so finally on that Occupy Raw, Daniel Bryan does the whole Occupy Raw thing, which is an awesome segment. And then he gets his match with Triple H changed to a big stipulation. So he gets his match with Triple H. Then if Daniel Bryan wins that match, he gets added into the main event of WrestleMania. So finally, they found a way to insert Daniel Bryan in the main event. And then the following week, Triple H said it was going to be a triple threat match at WrestleMania. But if Triple H won, he would be in the main event of WrestleMania as well. So now you've got either Bryan facing Orton and Batista, or it could be an Evolution three-way match. So obviously, just to build up. So finally, after all the fan support and all that, and all the social media backlash and all the negative crowd reactions, Daniel Bryan finally got his moment. He finally main evented WrestleMania, and you've got to think, on paper, probably the most unlikely WrestleMania main eventer of all time. Because you think, look back at the Ring of Honor days, imagine thinking then, do you know what? That Bryan Danielson fella, he will main event WrestleMania one day. I don't think anyone could have thought that. I mean, because obviously I knew how good Daniel Bryan was, but, you know, you look at him, he's not a WWE guy. He's like 5'8", probably barely 200 pounds. Not typically the type of guy WWE pushes to the top. So I thought when he signed in 2009, he'd probably have a good IC run, could maybe latch onto a successful tag team, but they're not going to push him as a top guy. But obviously, eventually, he just got over. He just got over for the fans, and he had to get in that spot. So obviously, earlier in the night, Bryan beats Triple H in a classic. I mean, that is an awesome WrestleMania match. And then the WrestleMania main event, just super hot match, awesome triple threat match. Obviously, the ironic thing, 10 years earlier, IWC favourite Chris Benoit was in a triple threat match with former DX members Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Then WrestleMania 30, IWC favourite Daniel Bryan was in the Ring of Evolution members Batista and Randy Orton. And yes, finally, Bryan won the big one, made Batista tap out in the main event of WrestleMania. And it was a magical moment, it really was. I mean, absolutely amazing moment. People were so happy about this. I was so happy about this. It was like one of the good guys finally won. One of the good, nice guys finally got over in wrestling, you know. And then it's just so tragic what happened. Because after all that struggle, Daniel Bryan finally made it at the top. He main evented and won the main event of WrestleMania. I mean, how many wrestlers can say that you've won the world title in the main event of WrestleMania? Not many. So he was finally on top of the world, and then his world came crashing down. His dad died a few weeks later. Then obviously got the neck injury, had to vacate the title. Then was gone for nearly a year. Then he came back. Got 2 months later, got concussed. Then he was retired for 3 years. It was just so happy it's all worked out for him now. I mean, now he's a WWE champion once again, and hopefully it's a part one has a big match at WrestleMania 35. But yeah, this will always be the defining night of his career. I mean, that image of him on the announce table, holding both belts over his head with all the pyro going off and shit. Just a powerful image, you know, and just really, really a fantastic moment, and definitely worthy of the Fave Fives. Coming in at number 4 now, we're on back to the year 2000. Backlash 2000. The Rock defeats Triple H in the main event to become the World Wrestling Federation champion. Oh, this is awesome times for me. I mean, these are just some great, great, great times in wrestling. So obviously back then, 13 years old, a massive WWF fanatic. I mean, I was just the ultimate WWE mark back then. I really was. So back then, I didn't miss a single show. Raw every single week, SmackDown every single week. Even watched Sunday Night Heat on a weekly basis. That's how much of a fan I was. So obviously, if you're in the UK, if you remember, back then Raw was on a Friday night. So Raw wasn't live in the UK like it is now. Raw was not till Friday night. So it was Raw Friday night, and then SmackDown was Saturday morning, I believe. Maybe 10 or 11 in the morning. And then Sunday Night Heat was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Channel 4, if you remember that. So, obviously at the time, WWF 2000, a great, great product. I mean, obviously, for me, probably creatively, probably the best time period ever in the WWF. Obviously, you just go back and watch those shows. They're all on the network, so if you haven't seen them, definitely check them out. So, and then this match right here, The Rock versus Triple H, main event of Backlash. The McMahon's in Triple H's corner. Stone Cold Steve Austin in The Rock's corner. This has to be one of the biggest B pay-per-view matches of all time. And by B pay-per-view matches, I mean not the Big Four, though. Outside the Big Four, this has got to be, if not the biggest one, the biggest B pay-per-view matches of all time. So really, when I think about massive B pay-per-view matches, there's really 3 matches I think of. It's this one, and then obviously Austin versus McMahon, St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and Stone Cold and The Undertaker are Fully Loaded 1999. So obviously for me, this goes at the end back of WrestleMania 2000 with the fatal 4-way and McMahon in every corner. Now, obviously, I agree with what people say. It should have been just The Rock versus Triple H, main event of WrestleMania 2000. Mick Foley shouldn't have came back. They could have done something else with the Big Show. But one thing I do disagree with people on, because the majority of people think that The Rock should have went over to win the WWF title at WrestleMania 2000. But I disagree. I was perfectly fine for the finish. Vince turns on The Rock, Triple H retains the title, and for the first time ever, a heel walks out at WrestleMania as the WWF champion. I thought that was great, because it gave you the extra few weeks to build up to this match, and obviously this made this match that more exciting. So obviously at the time, a heel winning the main event of WrestleMania was unheard of. Now, I know Yokozuna beat Bret Hart at WrestleMania 9, but he didn't walk out the champion, brother, did he? The almighty Hulkster walked out the champion that night, so first time ever a heel leaves WrestleMania as the WWF champion. Tradition broken. So now, with Mick Foley back in retirement, Big Show doing something else, all the McMahons back together, so Vince, Shane, Stephanie, Triple H, the whole McMahon-Helmsley faction back together, looked like Triple H on the top of the world, and The Rock had an uphill task going after. So obviously The Rock was then chasing Triple H for the title, eventually got his title shot, but he had to beat the big boss man of Bull Buchanan in a steel cage match to get it. But obviously the problem was every single week he was getting outnumbered. The McMahons were beating on him, Triple H was beating on him. He was just outnumbered, and obviously, so with Vince making Shane the special guest referee, Vince declaring that he was going to be in Triple H's corner. I mean, obviously Stephanie was going to be in Triple H's corner, his wife. So Linda McMahon decided The Rock was outnumbered and The Rock needed someone in his corner, and she put Stone Cold Steve Austin in his corner. And the pop she got when she announced Stone Cold Steve Austin for Backlash. Now, I have talked about that pre-Backlash SmackDown in the past videos, so I'm not going to go too much detail about it. But that was just awesome, the whole thing at the end where Austin destroyed the DX Express. I mean, if you were watching wrestling then, and you weren't excited for this Rock Triple H match, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, so now you've got these extra weeks, and the fans are really, obviously, they want The Rock to win the title at WrestleMania, but now they really desperately want to see the Backlash, I mean, because obviously at the time Austin had been on the injured list for a while, and The Rock had really emerged as the top babyface in the company by a wide margin. I mean, this was the time The Rock was just so popular it wasn't even funny. And I think this was around the time Hollywood came knocking on the door, because he was doing guest appearances on, he hosted Saturday Night Live, I think he did guest appearances on a couple of TV shows and things like that. The Rock was everywhere. I mean, even if you weren't a wrestling fan, you knew who The Rock was. I mean, he was probably one of the top guys in pop culture at the time. And yeah, it was just such an exciting match. Triple H, of course, on his, no pun intended, on the top of his game as a heel. So you had just a fantastic match. So Backlash, Washington DC, I don't think it's one of the better Rock Triple H matches, because I think stuff like the Iron Man match and the ladder matches were better than this. But this was super hot match, just so much entertainment on display, with Shane McMahon as a dodgy referee, the McMahons outside, all that shit. Patterson and Briscoe coming in to make phony counts, because Stone Cold hadn't showed up yet, and he showed up right towards the end of the match. Came out with his truck with a DX Express in the back. So obviously at this time Stone Cold had just come off neck surgery, so he couldn't really do anything. So all he could really do is give chair shots to everybody. So he did that. He took down Triple H. So it was finally 1-on-1. Then Linda McMahon came back with the fired referee Earl Hebner. I mean, I think this is one of those awesome times where you can overbook a match and not ruin the match type thing. Because obviously we've seen lots of matches where it was a ton of annoying run-ins and it just really hurt the match. But this one, it just enhanced the match. So they got down to The Rock and Triple H. The Rock hits the people's elbow. The Rock is the World Wrestling Federation champion, and all is right in the world. I mean, that was just... So this angle, this match, this time period in general, super hot. And because obviously at the time I was a massive Rock fan. I mean, remember the early days of the Attitude Era, I was a Stone Cold fan. But about mid-1999, I would say, I converted and I went to the Rock side, because there was just something about the Rock that was just so cool. Something I just gravitated towards so much. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still like Stone Cold and all that. I still thought he was awesome. But from 1999 onwards, The Rock was my favourite wrestler. Just wow. Yeah, just awesome times, man. Awesome times. And what a hot victory this was. I mean, I love this. I love the whole build-up of this match and this match in general. And like Backlash 2000, probably one of my favourite pay-per-views of all time. And hopefully we'll talk about this pay-per-view in the future, because I really do want to talk about it. But yeah, just got to say again, The Rock Backlash 2000, definitely in my Fave Fives. Coming in number 3, one of the most famous title victories in the history of the WWF, and for good reason. In what I like to call the original underdog story, Mankind defeats The Rock become the WWF champion. Raw's War, January 4th, 1999. So, like I say, long before Daniel Bryan was breaking barriers, Mick Foley was that guy there. You never thought would ever succeed in the WWE, and he did it. Became a major star, and he became the champion. So yeah, obviously Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, was a wrestler for years and years and years in the independent scene, ECW, WCW, Japan. But he was that guy. He was that hardcore guy that he was not a Vince McMahon wrestler in the slightest. He didn't look like a star. He wasn't a good athlete, but he was just talented. He was so good. And his promos were awesome. His ring style was completely different at the time. Obviously doing all the hardcore stuff. But obviously it left him pretty much battered later on. But it's what got him noticed, damn it. But I think he was always one of those guys you thought you'd never see in the WWF. But of course, he had people in his corner. People like Jim Cornette. People like Jim Ross working in the front office. Yeah, always pestering Vince to give Mick Foley a chance. Then in late 1995, Vince McMahon finally caved in, agreed to bring Mick Foley into the WWF, and then he debuted in 1996 as Mankind. Not Cactus Jack, as Mankind with a mask. I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail about this because it's a long story. But obviously, I think that was one of the stipulations was Vince was like, alright, I'll bring him in, but he's going to wear a mask, damn it. So yeah, it's just kind of funny. But then Mankind gets over in a huge way. Him and Undertaker had the feud of 1996. His popularity just grew in 1997 as he did all those interviews with Jim Ross and became a babyface. And then obviously 1998 was the year that defined him, I feel. Obviously that was his real breakout year, 1998. Obviously it started him and Cactus teaming up with him and Chainsaw Charlie, feud with the New Age Outlaws into WrestleMania. And then he became Austin's first program as a WWF champion, as Dude Love, into Unforgiven and Over the Edge in 1998. So now he had obviously he'd main event of pay-per-views before, most notably of Shawn Michaels and Mind Games, but now he had back-to-back WWF title main events against Steve Austin, and then of course the Hell in a Cell with Undertaker. I don't need to go into that one again. And then his popularity started growing and growing. But then Mick Foley realised something. Obviously, that Hell in a Cell match, I think that was a wake-up call for him pretty soon he was not going to be able to do the things that he used to be able to do. I mean, obviously, he's coming up to 33 now. He's been doing this a long time. That's a hell of a lot of wear and tear on the body. So Mick Foley decided he was going to change his character up and do some comedy shit. I mean, and it was awesome. I thought it was fucking great how he just adapted from this psychotic guy to this hilariously funny guy. Obviously, so like I said before in last week's video, some of the Mankind Vince skits were just genius. With obviously Mankind loving Vince McMahon, all that, and Vince McMahon just couldn't stand the guy. Just some of the random daft stuff he did, and obviously, of course, Vince being in the hospital gave birth to Mr. Socko, which I just can't get over how ironic that is, really. But for all the crazy shit Mick Foley done to himself, pulling a fucking sock out of his tights made him more popular than he ever had been before. So then, obviously, like I said, I was coming off Survivor Series 1998, which I talked about last week. Obviously, The Rock's first feud as champion was with Mankind, and the feud continued for the rest of 1998. And it's one of those ones, I think there was just magic in that Rock Mankind feud in late 98, early 1999. Now, you look at the two guys, like if you had no prior knowledge, you'd probably swear The Rock was the babyface and this Mankind was the heel, because obviously The Rock, good-looking athlete and all that, then you got Mankind, this big, ugly, menacing, hairy guy, thinking that's the heel, right? No, completely the opposite. Mankind was the babyface, Rock was the heel, and it worked. It was fucking awesome. Because off the back of being screwed by Vince's Survivor Series, Mankind's popularity just grew and grew and grew. And of course, this is the time period where the WWF was getting really hot. I mean, I know personally, this is when this is around the time a lot of people at school started liking wrestling. Because obviously in my primary school years, there was me and one or two others, so like 94, 95, 96, 97. So there's only me and like one or two others who watched wrestling. Then obviously in 1998, I was in a comprehensive school then. The WWF was just getting more popular. It just seems like more people my age watching wrestling. So 98, 99, those were the really hot years as far as me. Like, maybe, cause I think the rest of the fan base definitely grew around my era at that time, because more people I knew started liking wrestling. It was just this generally hot time period. So we got the In Your House Rock Bottom. Mankind beats The Rock, but then screws him again, saying you can only win the WWF title on a pinfall or submission. And you didn't pin The Rock, or The Rock didn't say I quit. Now, granted that, obviously it was a heel being a heel and all that and trying to screw Mankind, but does that not kind of wipe out all the times Mankind won his matches with the Mandible Claw over the last 2.5 years? Just saying. So, and then obviously got into this show. So the Rock and Mankind feud continued, and then obviously this, of course, probably one of the most infamous nights in the history of the Monday Night War. So, should point out, although this match was aired on January the 4th, 1999, it was taped the week prior, I think on about December the 28th, maybe, because at this time, Raw was not live every single week. So, typically, Raw would be live one week, then the next day, on a Tuesday, they taped the next week's episode of Raw, which would air the following Monday. So Raw was live one week, taped one week, live one week, taped the next week. And it wasn't until the introduction of SmackDown in August of 1999 that Raw became live every single week, because obviously they needed every Tuesday to tape SmackDown now. So this is a taped Raw, and they taped the title change here. So they decided they were going to give fans a big title change on Raw, because it was one of those things that they just couldn't ignore anymore. Mick Foley, he'd fucking earned it. They were going to give him his moment. Now, Mick Foley, more than anyone knows, he was never going to be the man in the WWF. This was more of a congratulations, a lifetime achievement award more than anything. It wasn't the anointment of Mankind being the guy in the WWF. I mean, clearly that was Rock and Austin. Those were the two guys. Mankind got so over. He deserved at least one title run in his career, and he was going to get it right here. Now, of course, this is famous for being the Finger Poke of Doom night, where it was supposed to be Goldberg and Kevin Nash, but it ended up being Hogan. They did the whole Finger Poke of Doom. I'm not going to get into that. I mean, that's been debated endlessly over the years. You don't really need me to debate about it here. But obviously the big one, because obviously back in the early days of Monday Night Wars, one of Eric Bischoff's best tricks was he was live every week, right? Raw wasn't, so people don't know what's going to happen on Bischoff's show, but Bischoff and other people know what's going to happen on their show. So what Bischoff was going to do is going to give away the results on Raw live on Nitro. And it was just one of those tactics, like a fuck you tactic, you know, just you arrogant motherfucker. I mean, it was a dick move, yeah, but they were in a war, so why not, right? But obviously he hadn't done that for a while, so he thought, because obviously at this time, WWF was clearly number one again, so Bischoff was going to try his old trick again. He instructed the announcer, Tony Schiavone, to say something to the effects of the following: if you're thinking of changing the channel to the competition, do not. Will you understand that Mick Foley, who wrestled one time as Cactus Jack, is going to win their world title? Yeah, that's going to be their world champion. And then the famous line, "Oh, that'll put some butts in the seat." Now, I don't shit on Tony Schiavone for this. He was just doing what his boss told him to do. I imagine most people in Schiavone's position would have done the exact same thing. But obviously, the interesting thing happened was, pretty much around the same time the announcement was made, about 500,000 people switched over to Raw to see the title change. So there you go. Whoopsie daisy, WCW. You just send 500,000 people over to your competition to watch Raw. Now, one thing for me, just from personal experience, obviously back then, in 1998, I was not online, so I was not aware that this title change was going to happen at all. So, and obviously I wasn't watching Nitro at the time, because I was mainly watching the WWF, so I didn't have a clue about Schiavone's announcement or anything. So I'm watching Raw, and it's just a normal Raw for me. And then this happened, so it was set up in a way that Mankind and Triple H were going to wrestle in a match there for a spot in the 1999 Royal Rumble. Shane McMahon was the guest referee, but then Shane screws Mankind out of the match. Triple H said, sorry, but I'll take the win any way I can. But I'll give you a late Christmas present. So Triple H, pedigree, Shane McMahon, and then Mick Foley, Mankind, puts Shane McMahon in a painful wrestling hold and basically holds Vince up, saying he'll break his son's goddamn shoulder if he doesn't give him a title shot right here tonight. And then Vince McMahon, obviously with Shane in this position, emotional blackmail, he caves in and gives Mankind the title shot tonight on Raw. So wow, we're going to get to see The Rock and Mankind for the title tonight on Raw. Now, and yeah, because I was just thinking, what if Mick Foley actually won? Because I think even then people were thinking, obviously people who hadn't read the spoilers or hadn't heard Tony Schiavone's announcement, thinking, yeah, they're not going to put the title on Mankind, are they, really? You'd think probably not. Then obviously the match happens, and what was cool, obviously The Rock had the corporation, and Mankind and DX had kind of had the lines going for the last couple of weeks. Obviously Mankind wasn't in DX, but obviously Mankind and DX had mutual enemies in the corporation, so both DX and the corporation were at ringside, and we got the match, and it was a good match. I don't think the match was that important, though. It didn't have to be. I mean, there was better Rock and Mankind matches than this, but it was entertaining as hell. It's just a super hot Raw main event. Obviously, then it comes down to it. I think, if I'm remembering right, I think Mankind had the pin, and it was Ken Shamrock who broke up the pin. And then Billy Gunn tackles Ken Shamrock. And then we have a mass brawl on the outside between DX and the corporation, distracting the referee. Then, of course, Stone Cold Steve Austin's music hits. Austin had been off television since Rock Bottom. And the pop Austin got when Austin's music came, wow. I miss those Attitude Era pops, put it that way. Stone Cold Steve Austin marches out of the ring, smacks the Rock in the head with a steel chair, puts Mankind on the Rock. Now, granted, the referee hasn't turned his back any time Stone Cold's music hit. I mean, if you hear Stone Cold's music hits, you probably assume it's coming out right. So I suppose the ref just conveniently ignored that. Mankind covers the Rock. 1, 2, 3. Yes! Mankind was the World Wrestling Federation champion. And again, what an incredible pop that was. And just a truly magical moment. Because obviously, a guy like Mick Foley, I mean, that's a guy who no one ever thought was ever going to be a world champion. I mean, come on, you look at that. Could you imagine, like, in 1993, 1994, saying, you know what, that Cactus Jack guy, I think he'll be the WWF champion someday. Not a chance. But he earned it, he worked. I mean, not many people worked harder than Mick Foley. I mean, not many people deserve that victory more than Mick Foley. Like I said, I think he was once called the most unlikely WWF champion of all time, but the most deserved, and I think that's absolutely true. I mean, because obviously our group is just a massive Mick Foley fan, love the guy. Yeah, it was just a wonderful, wonderful moment for me. I mean, for that moment, it was like everything was right in the world, you know. That's what makes this business all about. Hard-working guys getting their opportunities to succeed. And for me, especially free television, definitely the most famous television on free television title victory of all time, and probably one of the greatest WWF title victories of all time to this day. I mean, it's coming up 20 years soon, and that's just bizarre to me. It's pretty much in a few weeks, this match will be 20 years old, just bizarre stuff. But yeah, for me, a truly magical moment, and definitely deserves to be on this list. Now, coming in number 2, and first a lot of people thought this would be number 1, didn't they? But it's not. Something else is number 1. But this is number 2, and that's a great spot to be at. And that's Bret Hart defeating Yokozuna in the main event of WrestleMania 10 in Madison Square Garden. So obviously, Bret Hart, my favourite wrestler of all time, as you know. Of course, Bret Hart was going to make this list. I mean, you've probably seen these Fave Five, that's a common theme now. Something Bret Hart's either done or had a match or a moment is usually in the list if I can get it in there. And yeah, obviously childhood memories, WrestleMania 10. As a kid, I loved this show growing up, and as an adult, I have great nostalgic memories of this show. So obviously, and here's another one. Next year, this show's going to be 25 years old. That is just mental. Like, absolutely mental to me that this show is going to be 25 years old next year. But yeah, but that's another issue. So obviously, yeah, back in the day, 1993, 1994. So this has a decent backstory. So it really goes back to WrestleMania 9. Bret Hart's the World Wrestling Federation champion after being the champion since October in 1992. Main eventing against this 500-pound young guy by the name of Yokozuna, also known as Rodney Anoa'i. And you're thinking, Anoa'i, is he related to Roman Reigns? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Cousin, I believe, I think. It's really hard to figure out that Samoan bloody family. But I believe Yokozuna and Roman Reigns were cousins. So, obviously at the time, steroid scandal, Vince couldn't use big steroid guys anymore. But Vince always wanted big men. And then he found this 500-pound Yokozuna, who obviously, I mean, let's be fair, I'm not being rude or anything, but I don't think anyone could ever accuse Yokozuna of taking steroids. Just saying. So obviously Yokozuna, a big 500 guy. But he wasn't just a lazy fat guy. He was a really agile big man. And I've always thought if Yokozuna had kept himself around his debut weight, he would have had a much longer run on top. But of course, as the years went on, he just piled the pounds up to the point where he got like about 650 pounds. And obviously, at that point, he couldn't get licensed in certain states because of his weight, because of all the health concerns. And he just couldn't lose weight, ended up leaving WWF altogether in 1996, and sadly passed away in the year 2000 of a heart attack, which is a tragic story. So, Bret and Yoko for the title. Bret has Yoko on the sharpshooter, Mr. Fuji chucks salt in Bret Hart's eyes, which was actually baby powder, not actual salt. Then Yokozuna becomes the WWF champion at WrestleMania 9 at the age of 26, and I believe, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe at that time, that made Yoko the youngest world champion of all time. Because him and The Undertaker were the same age when The Undertaker was in 1991. But I think Yokozuna was a couple of months younger than The Undertaker was. Then, of course, I believe that record was broken against The Rock. And then Brock Lesnar shattered that record in 2002. Then, of course, as far as world title goes, Randy Orton now holds a record of 24. But at that time, I believe Yokozuna was the youngest champion in history. And then, of course, oh God, Hulk Hogan came and won the title. I'm not going to complain about that. We'll just ignore that for now. And then later on, Yokozuna won the title back at King of the Ring, while Bret Hart kind of got shut down the card a little bit. I mean, he did win the King of the Ring, yeah, and then he feuded with Jerry Lawler, but he was out the title picture for pretty much a year at this point. But obviously, what's interesting about Yokozuna, I mean, he was the first heel in a hell of a long time to have a real run on top as a WWF champion, because obviously, you look at the WWF, it was virtually a babyface territory from the start. I mean, going all the way back to Bruno Sammartino. I think the last heel before Yokozuna to have a lengthy run on top as champion was Superstar Billy Graham in 77, 78. So what we're talking, like 15 years at that point. Because obviously you look at the champions around the same time period. So let's go about like the 10 years prior to this. So Iron Sheik had the belt for like 2 weeks, transitioning from Backlund to Hogan. Andre was the champion for 2 minutes. Macho Man turned heel right at the very end of his 89 run. So he had Slaughter was obviously another transitional champion from Royal Rumble 1991 to WrestleMania 7. Same thing with Ric Flair. Flair only had the title from the Rumble 1992 to WrestleMania 8, and then for about 6 weeks in September of October in 1992. So yeah, they'll just let Yokozuna run as a champion. And obviously, most people think Lex Luger probably should have beat him at SummerSlam 1993, but that's another issue. So now we're going to 1994. Yokozuna's had a dominant run as champion. As a kid, watching this as a kid, I didn't think anyone could beat Yokozuna because he just been through everybody. So I was totally convinced that Yokozuna was this unbeatable monster. So obviously, Rumble 1994, Yokozuna retains title against The Undertaker in a casket match, which we might talk about another time. Then obviously the controversial finish of the 1994 Royal Rumble, Bret Hart and Lex Luger both went over the top rope and hit the floor about the same time. I mean, they probably didn't hit the exact same time, but I think it was close enough. And I think they pulled off the move fairly well, because obviously sometimes spots like this can just look so phony, and it's like absolutely obvious that one person hit the ground first. But in this one, you couldn't really tell. And Bret actually credits Lex Luger for this, actually, which, as you know, Bret, probably not the most humble guy when talking about himself and his abilities, but Bret actually puts Lex Luger over as the one who was in control of how they went over. So Bret actually gives Lex Luger the credit for that spot going off so well. Then, of course, famously at the end of the match, they they raised Lex Luger's hands to a mixture of boos and cheers, but when they raised Bret's hand, it was like overwhelming cheers. So at the time, because I think this was the time Vince was set on Lex Luger being the guy, but the fans that were watching the product at the time, they really wanted Bret to be the champion, and it was kind of funny. Imagine this now. I could imagine now they'd probably try and bury Bret, turn him heel or something, and just continue with the Lex Luger push like nothing was wrong. But I think at that point Vince changed his mind. He was going to put the belt back on Bret at WrestleMania, and God, it just never happened for Luger, unfortunately. Because Vince's theory at the time, he didn't put the belt on Lex at SummerSlam. He was going to put the belt on at WrestleMania, but after failing at SummerSlam, the push kind of died off, and fans supporting Luger kind of waned, unfortunately. So that was definitely an example of them not striking when the iron was hot with Luger. So who knows what would have happened if Luger had won the title? I don't know. So but obviously there was another big conflict going on at the time as well. So at the time Bret was getting back in the title hunt. This was the time he was having the issues of Owen, who turned on Bret the very same night at the Rumble 1994. And again, I've talked about this in other videos, and I think it was in the Rivalries videos as well. So we're not going to go into big detail right now about that. But of course, that was a unique situation at WrestleMania. Because if you do this thing nowadays, it would have been simply Bret Hart versus Lex Luger versus Yokozuna for the WWF title at WrestleMania. But of course, triple threats weren't a thing really in 1994, especially the WWF. So they did a thing where there was going to be two WWF Championship matches that night. Both Bret Hart and Lex Luger were going to get a chance to challenge for the WWF title. And they were going to do a coin toss, and the winner of the coin toss got the first match, and the loser would have to face suitable competition in the opening match. So if Lex Luger won the coin toss, Bret would have to face his brother Owen. Luger would get the first title shot, and then Bret would face the winner of that in the main event. But on the other, if Bret won the coin toss, Lex Luger would have to wrestle Crush earlier in the night. Bret would face Yokozuna first, and Lex Luger would face the winner of that. But of course, Lex Luger won the coin toss, gets the first shot. Bret faces Owen. So then WrestleMania 10, just, oh God, I have such fond memories of this show. Now I imagine people younger than me probably don't really think the show's that great, because as an actual wrestling show, it's definitely flawed. But childhood memories and all that, I grew up loving this show, so this is one of my favourite WrestleManias of all time. You had obviously the Bret Owen opener, 5-star match, absolute classic. Owen wins. Then Lex Luger faces Yokozuna for the title. Then obviously they do a thing where Mr. Perfect, the guest referee, screws Lex Luger out of the title, so Yokozuna retains, and it's going to be a rematch of WrestleMania 9, Bret Hart versus Yokozuna in the main event of WrestleMania 10. Now obviously, this was the time where people like Hogan were out the picture completely, Savage was winding his career down, The Undertaker was off injured, so Bret was going to get that chance once again to be the WWF champion. Him and Yoko, they had a good match. I don't think it was a great match. And I'll be honest, I feel like the Bret Hart and Yokozuna matches definitely could have been a lot better. And even as a Bret fan, I've got to admit, Bret maybe could have done a better job carrying Yoko. Because I feel like Yokozuna's best ever match was actually with Randy Savage on a Raw in like February of 1994 for the title. But anyway, so obviously this had Roddy Piper as a special guest referee in Madison Square Garden, where Piper had main evented the very first WrestleMania back in '85. So obviously, and again, I love this finish. I think a lot of people shit on this finish, but I actually liked it. So Yokozuna had Bret Hart on the ropes. It looked like Bret could not overcome this 500-pound monster. Yokozuna had Bret Hart set up, bonsai drop. It was going to be over, right? But then Yokozuna actually loses his balance, falls off the rope, hits the mat. Bret Hart rolls out just in the nick of time. Thank God he did. Because imagine that, if Bret couldn't roll out the way in time, Yokozuna surely would have crushed him. So obviously Yokozuna fucks up, knocks himself out. Bret pins Yokozuna to win the WWF title in Madison Square Garden. Incredible pop. I mean, like I said, I think a lot of people shit all over that finish, but I thought it was pretty awesome. And I think I said in a previous video, I think that's one of the things I loved about Bret. A lot of his big matches he won by the skin of his teeth, not by dominating his opponents, if that makes sense to anybody. So there you go, Bret Hart, your new World Wrestling Federation champion. Now, Bret had been a 5-time champion in his career, but obviously winning the title in Madison Square Garden in the main event of WrestleMania. It doesn't really get much bigger than that, does it really? I mean, that's a Madison Square Garden special, and especially the 10th anniversary of WrestleMania. Well, not 10th anniversary, sorry. WrestleMania 10, just special one. At the end of the match as well, all the babyface came out to congratulate Bret. That was just an awesome moment, because that was like, okay, Bret, now here's your chance. Now we're going to make you the guy of this company. It was just an awesome, awesome moment. Even people like Gorilla Monsoon came into the ring. Vince himself came to the ring to congratulate Bret, which was awesome. And just ironic how things ended for them. But yeah, just a really, really great moment. And obviously childhood memories and all that. I mean, I love this title change. It's one of my favourite title changes of all time. One of my favourites, but not my favourite. Now, what WWF title win gets that distinction? Well, for me, there's only one choice, really, and that is Stone Cold Steve Austin is anointed the man in the main event of WrestleMania 14. So, obviously, in my lifetime watching wrestling, this right here, Stone Cold Steve Austin, probably the most popular guy I've ever seen in wrestling. I mean, obviously, I missed most of Hogan's days, so I didn't see Hulkamania craze in the 1980s. I wasn't born until 86, so missed out on all that. I didn't watch wrestling until 1992, so watching the rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin, I mean, for me, this is probably, for me, for what I've experienced, probably the biggest title change in the company's history. One of the most important transitions in the company history, and it's an all-round classic moment, which is still awesome to this day. So, 1998, what a time. Obviously, we were very height of the Monday Night Wars. WCW have been beating the WWF consistently since mid-1996. The WWF needed something, so they started building in 1997. I mean, obviously the Attitude Era wasn't born until later in the year, but the seeds were getting planted throughout 1997. Now, it didn't reflect in ratings yet. I mean, WCW was still handily winning for a while, but I think a lot of people found the WWF more entertaining in 1997 than WCW. I, for one, did. And from what I understand, pay-per-view buy rates are comparable. So, sometimes, there was even times where WWF would have a better buy rate than WCW, I think. But, anyway, so, and this is really on the back of one guy, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, famously, we had the famous Austin-Bret submission match at WrestleMania 13. Stone Cold passed out in the sharpshooter, all that. Then that new babyface was born. Because obviously since Hogan left, Vince had tried to have that super hot babyface. It never really worked. I mean, those guys popular, but no one was really on Hogan's level. So he tried people like Lex Luger, tried people like Diesel, Bret Hart. Although Bret was popular, but he was never ever on that level of Hogan. Shawn Michaels, same thing, was never quite on Hogan's level. And then Vince had finally found his guy in Steve Austin. I mean, Austin was like the babyface of the rebellious 1990s generation. So Hogan was the ultimate good guy in the 80s. Austin was that anti-hero for the 1990s. So obviously Austin's popularity just shot up in 1997. I mean, to insane levels. I mean, that Austin 316 shirt was so damn hot, and it could have ended for him. I mean, Owen Hart dropped him his head at SummerSlam 1997. Could have been the end of his career, and who knows? I always believe if Austin hadn't come back from that injury, WCW probably would have won the war. That's my opinion. And obviously, but Stone Cold, but so they was in a tricky position. They couldn't have him wrestle, but they didn't want to keep him off television, so they had to keep putting him in creative scenarios to keep him on television, and it was fucking great. I mean, I was that period where Austin was injured, but he was still on television. He just got more and more and more popular. It was pretty obvious that Austin was going to be the guy in 1998. And ideally, the place to have him be the champion for the first time was WrestleMania 14. Now, obviously, late 1997, Bret Hart had left the company. Montreal Screwjob, I know. We don't need to get into that one again. So now Shawn Michaels was the champion. Starting up this little group called D-Generation X. You ever heard of them? So yeah, super hot faction DX. I mean, awesome stuff. But then the WWF, they needed one big thing, and Vince was going to take a great gamble on here. And Vince's gamble was bringing in Mike Tyson to the WWF to be a part of WrestleMania 14. And you got to say, Vince was right. Vince was absolute genius for this, because obviously one of the biggest parts of the like early WrestleMania success with celebrities like Mr. T and all that. So Vince was going to try and recreate that magic with Tyson. And he probably wasn't a more controversial celebrity on the planet than Mike Tyson. So this was at the time Tyson was suspended for boxing for biting Evander Holyfield's ear. And no, I'm not making that up, but that really happened. So Tyson couldn't box anymore. So Vince brought him into the WWF to have him be a major part of this story. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail because I could talk like about 10-15 minutes just on the build-up for WrestleMania 14. But obviously the highlight, of course, that infamous angle with Stone Cold the night after the 1998 Royal Rumble. That was just a truly, truly epic moment. It really was. Then, of course, it later transpired that Tyson was a part of DX because Shawn Michaels called him out. It looked like Tyson and DX were going to fight. And then, obviously, Tyson's WWF shirt was ripped off, and he had a DX shirt underneath. And so, like, holy crap, Stone Cold's in trouble now. And Shawn Michaels has Mike Tyson on his side. Because I think at this point, Tyson was already announced as the ringside enforcer for the match. So, looked like, holy crap, Shawn's going to pull out all the stops. Then at the same time, Austin and Vince's issues were really just starting. I mean, obviously the feud didn't officially kick off until the night after WrestleMania 14, but there was a big angle on Raw where Kevin Kelly asked Vince McMahon the question, do you want Stone Cold Steve Austin to be the WWF champion? And Vince kind of skirted around the issue, saying, you know, if Austin could be moulded and be a corporate champion, that'd be one thing, but Stone Cold Steve and Austin as he is now, that'd be a corporate nightmare. So obviously Kevin Kelly was not satisfied with that answer, so he kept pressing Vince on the issue, saying, look, let people know the truth. Do you or do you not want Stone Cold to be the WWF champion? So Vince finally asked the question for the following. It's not just a no, it's a, oh, hell no! So now, it looked like, obviously, Tyson was on DX's side. Vince was dead set against Austin. Austin had an uphill task to win the WWF title. I mean, because obviously at the end, Austin was going to win the title. But you try and build your story with the babyface being at a disadvantage. That's how wrestling works. That's how people get behind babyfaces. Put them at an uphill disadvantage. So obviously the build of this match was awesome. This felt like the biggest WWF match in years. And to this day, it's probably top 5 biggest matches of all time. So I'll probably say it's probably the biggest WWF match since Hogan Warrior at WrestleMania 6, the Ultimate Challenge, so that's 8 years earlier. So Vince was paying Tyson a lot as well, so Vince was banking on this being a success, and it was. They got about 730,000 pay-per-view buys, which is a all over treble of what WrestleMania 13 got, which was about 230,000 buys, so an unqualified success. And obviously this, of course, was famous for Shawn Michaels working the match with a broken back. I mean, Shawn Michaels was injured. I mean, there's a lot of people, well, it's obviously Shawn Michaels, at some point he kind of became the boy that cried wolf, so Shawn Michaels had either exaggerated or faked injuries in the past to get out doing their job. So when Shawn Michaels actually did have a real back injury, I think a lot of people were sceptical about it. People thought he was full of shit and all that, but no, it was the real deal. Shawn Michaels was seriously hurt and he gutted it out. I mean, this match was as good as it could have been under the circumstances, because obviously Shawn Michaels was literally working in a match with a broken back. So, and just the fact he worked this match at all was nothing short of amazing. The fact the match was actually so good was pretty much a miracle. And you got to remember, this is Stone Cold coming back from being dropped in his head at SummerSlam 1997. So Austin was far from 100% as well with his neck. I mean, because obviously you look at when Austin came back to Survivor Series, if you go back and you watch all these Raws and all that, you'll notice Austin wasn't wrestling unless absolutely necessary. And if he did, they were usually shortish matches where Austin didn't have to do a whole lot. So really that whole time Stone Cold was on top. He was working around his neck injuries. So because of that, the match wasn't a classic. Because I do feel like 100% Austin versus 100% Michaels at WrestleMania, that would have been a 5-star match for me. I think that anyway. But the match was entertaining for what it was, though. I mean, it wasn't really about having a great match. That's the thing. It was about telling the story in the moment of Austin winning the title. So we get down to it. Michaels goes for a super kick. Austin catches a foot, spins him round. Kick, wham, stunner. Then Tyson comes into the ring. 1, 2, 3. And Stone Cold Steve Austin is finally the man. Stone Cold is finally the WWF champion. As it transpired, Tyson and Austin were in cahoots the whole time. But yeah, obviously the fans were just so happy to see Austin win the title. And the last man to win the Winged Eagle title. Just a little trivia note there, because obviously the next night on Raw, he was given the Big Eagle title belt, which is, I always refer to it as the Attitude Era World title belt, but you know, and GR, awesome line saying, the Austin era has begun. Well, damn, Jim, you were pretty right about that, weren't you? But yeah, just a magical moment, awesome title win for me, my favourite WWF-WWE title change of all time. So that's a wrap, guys. Thanks for watching. I've got my next 2 weeks mapped out. So next week I'll do a WWE TLC matches. Fave 5 TLC matches is next week. Then the week after that, I'm going to do my Fave 5 wrestling shows of 2018. And that is actually going to wrap up Londrick's Fave 5 to 2018, because after that, I'll be taking a hiatus and be off. I won't be coming back till January then. So obviously with the Christmas period coming up and all that, I'll just be too super busy to do long videos. So I've got 2 Fave 5s coming up, and then just something for you guys to look forward to next month. I've got 4 lists in mind next month, and obviously December, that's matches of the year. So I've got 4 in that regard. So I've got the top New Japan matches of the year, and as always, top 15 WWF main roster matches of the year, then top 15 NXT matches of the year. But this year, I'm going to go for top 15 205 live matches of the year, because I think there's a lot of great matches on that brand, and they deserve to be recognised. So look out for that, guys. And again, thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.